Have you ever walked into a room and just felt the mood without anyone saying a single word? It's like we pass things between us all the time, completely unseen. It's vibrating through crowded spaces and quiet conversations. It's this constant, subtle exchange going back and forth, and we usually don't even realize we're participating in it. Today, we're going to explore a really fascinating biological and social phenomenon. It's called emotional contagion. Think about being in a really busy public space. Someone nearby starts to laugh, a real, genuine laugh. Almost involuntarily, you kind of feel yourself starting to smile, right? Within seconds, the whole atmosphere of that space fundamentally shifts. So how exactly do these feelings spread without anyone speaking? It's honestly one of the most profound everyday mysteries out there, how a shifting mood connects total strangers through this invisible web.
Okay, let's dive into this. The core truth here is that emotions don't just stay trapped inside of us. They move. They're constantly moving between people. Our minds are basically running this incredibly sophisticated dual processing system in the background all the time. We're meticulously reading the emotional cues of everyone around us, and simultaneously, we're adjusting our own internal state to match. It's a continuous loop that dictates the social weather of literally any environment we walk into.
Decoding the emotional signal. Let's look at what's actually happening beneath the surface.
We usually think of emotions just as these abstract feelings, right? But we kind of need to reframe that entirely. At its core, an emotion is a biological state. It's a highly coordinated physical and mental mechanism that's preparing you for immediate action. For example, fear physically prepares your muscles to run from danger. Joy is an evolutionary signal that you're safe. Anger signals a boundary's been crossed, flooding your system with the exact energy needed to defend it.
Emotion, therefore, isn't just a simple label we slap on things, like happy or sad. It's an active state that changes how you interact with the world. It speeds up your reaction time, it sharpens your attention, and it fundamentally alters your perception. It's honestly like changing the lighting in a room. Once that emotional lighting shifts, suddenly everything you're looking at is cast in a completely different color.
And this state kicks in fast, unfolding in 3 instant steps. First, there's the physiological body response. Your heart rate jumps, maybe your muscles tense up. Next is the mental interpretation, where your brain rapidly assigns meaning to that physical shift. And finally, that leads to action readiness, getting you positioned to actually move or react. These 3 elements fuse together in a fraction of a second to create what we casually call a feeling.
To put that into perspective, think of this biological process like a dashboard light in your car. The light itself isn't the engine problem, right? It's just a signal indicating that something under the hood needs your attention. Well, emotion is our deeply ingrained evolutionary signal. It's an internal alert system designed to help us interpret massively complex situations almost instantly, boiling all that sensory data down into one single actionable state.
But here is where the mystery really deepens. If an emotion is just an internal dashboard signal meant for your own survival, how do those signals escape you? What is actually crossing the physical space between you and someone sitting quietly on the other side of the room? How does their internal alert system somehow manage to trigger yours?
The invisible social network. Let's see how these internal states become completely visible to everyone else.
The answer is that humans are just extraordinarily good at detecting micro changes in each other. We broadcast our internal dashboard lights outward through socially readable signals. We're talking about incredibly subtle shifts in facial expressions, involuntary changes in the pitch of our voice, or even unconscious adjustments in how we're sitting or standing. We naturally read these signals, kind of like spotting smoke rising from a distant fire, to figure out what someone else is experiencing on the inside.
And because human emotion evolved for pure survival and speed, not necessarily perfect accuracy, we're hardwired to react to those signals before our conscious minds even know what they mean. We pick up on the physical state of readiness in others. So these biological states actually spread rapidly from person to person long before the conscious labeled feelings ever do.
The mechanics of mirroring. This is where we look at the exact biological mechanism making this transfer possible.
This physical transfer happens through something called mirroring. Now, mirroring is our automatic, totally unconscious tendency to physically match someone else in our environment. But, and this is a big distinction, we don't do this just to copy them. Our bodies subtly align with the people around us to process social information faster. By briefly adopting their physical state, our own brain gets a shortcut to decode their internal emotional state. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these different biological channels combine simultaneously. In real time, you're constantly absorbing micro-expressions from someone's face. At the exact same time, you're tracking the subtle tone and pitch of their voice, and you're continuously aligning with their body posture. All these independent channels fuse together in a split second to create one unified, shared emotional understanding.
And the wild part? We don't even have to try. Humans mirror automatically. It's absolutely crucial for our survival because this rapid, unconscious physical alignment builds trust, it builds connection and empathy. It's literally the biological glue that creates the complex coordination we need for human groups to function and survive together.
Let's move on and see how this builds into a rapid chain reaction. First, someone in your space exhibits an expression. Second, your sensory systems perceive it. Third, your body unconsciously mirrors it, taking on a microscopic version of their posture or facial expression. And fourth, because of that physical mirroring, you actually arrive at a shared emotion. That's it right there. That is the continuous loop of emotional contagion quietly running in the background of our lives.
So this brings up a fascinating and maybe even a little unsettling realization. The next time you feel a sudden, unexplained wave of anxiety or a spontaneous burst of joy in a crowded room, pause for a second. Ask yourself, is this actually my feeling? Did it really originate from my own internal dashboard? Or was it borrowed from the environment around me?
The ripple effect. Let's zoom out and look at the macro level.
When we look at an entire room instead of just a one-on-one interaction, we see this system on a much larger scale. If one person walks into a space feeling really anxious or tense, the people around them might instantly, unconsciously mirror that state. Then, that subtle tension ripples outward. It amplifies the group's overall emotional temperature without a single person consciously agreeing to it. What started as one individual's internal signal is now a completely shared environmental state.
But here's the good news. By understanding this invisible, constant transfer, you gain an incredible advantage. You can actually start to observe when an emotion is silently sweeping through a group. And more importantly, you can learn to separate your own internal feelings from the heavy influence of the crowd. You can recognize these biological signals for what they are, observing them without just blindly absorbing them. You get clarity instead of just a knee-jerk reaction. So, the crucial point we want to leave you with is this. Emotional contagion is not just randomness. It's a highly structured, wonderfully predictable biological system. It's literally the architecture of human connection, a system where emotional states move constantly between us through readable signals, automatic mirroring, and shared attention.
Which leaves us with one final thought. The next time you walk into a room and you feel that atmospheric mood shift, what are you going to do? Will you unconsciously absorb the signal, letting it dictate how you feel? Or will you take a breath, pause, and just observe the reflection? This invisible network is always running all around us. The difference is, now, you know exactly how to see it.